Welcome back, everybody. I'm Sean LaFlock of Flock Fitness. If you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. In today's fitness, wellness, and longevity podcast, I had the honor and privilege of sitting down with Paul Carcaterra. Paul is actually a sideline reporter for ESPN when he's doing college football, but he also does analysis and commentating for college lacrosse. So he wears many hats. He is also a father of two. Though Paul is super successful in the professional world, I wanted to sit down with him and see how he balances out his professional career with his fitness and wellness. And I was actually really surprised to hear some of the answers that he had, and I really found huge value in the things that he told me about. So I want to share that with you guys here. I know you're definitely going to get a ton out of this, especially if you're a professional who's struggling to find balance with your professional life and with your fitness, wellness, nutrition, all those types of things. Thank you so much for listening to this today. But if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. This podcast is also available on all platforms that podcasts are put out. So if you haven't subscribed to the Fitness, Wellness, and Longevity Podcast, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, rate, review it, share it with your friends. We talk about a lot of topics in the fitness, wellness world, so it's definitely worthwhile. We do a weekly podcast, myself, Scott Hagnes, and special guests each and every week. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and enjoy my interview with Paul Carcaterra.
Paul, it's unbelievable seeing you, man. These are great times, huh?
Great times, man. Great times. You're one of my favorite humans. I tell your story quite a bit too.
Well, that's very flattering. And for you to even bring my name up amongst the thousands and thousands of individuals that you've come across, that is a huge compliment. And I will take a moment today to kind of take that in. And speaking of which, Paul, I know that, you wear many hats. Not only are you a sideline, would you consider yourself a sideline reporter for ESPN? Is that what you're?
Yeah, sideline reporter in college football, analyst in lacrosse. Okay. In lacrosse, I wear many hats. So I could be in the booth as an analyst. I could be on the field as an analyst. I do features on certain personalities in the sport, players, coaches, alums, anyone of significance. Also have my own podcast as well through US Lacrosse. So between college football season in the fall, lacrosse in the spring, which is basically a late winter sport now with ESPN. I'm pretty busy, and I try to do a couple other things professionally, not to mention I have a wife and two kids. So I stay busy.
So that's a great point, Paul, because a lot of the clients that I work with and the audience that kind of listens to this podcast in particular is not necessarily the hugely competitive, college athlete. We're talking about the 40 plus community who has a 9-to-5, usually fairly successful, balancing their family, their work, their personal health is one of the most challenging things that they can find. So I think the reason why I wanted to sit down with you and chat is because you are in a position where you're probably, that's a great question to start out with. How many days out of the year are you on the road?
I've never really sat down and calculated it, but I would say in a normal college football season from September 1st, basically through December and early January, I'd be on the road 3 days a week. And then I have a little hiatus with January and part of February off, but I travel a lot during those months, snowboarding with my kids. So I'm traveling all the time. And then lacrosse season starts basically in February, in a non-COVID year at least, and runs through June 1st, essentially. So from September to June, I'm on the road a ton. And if I'm not working, I'm going somewhere, finding a mountain with my kids because they love to snowboard. I love to snowboard. So I'm on the road all the time.
All right. So, being on the road that much and then knowing that in the back of your mind, man, I got to be ready to hit the slopes. What's your mindset when it goes for travel in terms of keeping yourself, I guess, in physical shape as you travel the country? And how does that relate to what happens once you're home?
When I was in my 30s, I was working out probably, 3 to 5 days a week. But I'm going to be honest with you. I was kind of mailing in the workouts. They were just like the the routine 3-mile jog, go to the gym and take some time off in between sets. And, things changed for me right around 40. I'm 45 right now. And I completely changed the way that I work out. I completely changed the way that I look at food. And I have cheat days, and we can get into those, and I'll eat and really just kind of just enjoy myself. But I do get into a routine where I eat healthier as well. But my workouts completely changed right around 40. I was, going to the gym and just getting the workout from a standpoint of checking the boxes. And it really wasn't doing anything for me. And then I actually started working out 1 year in college football on the road. I was making it a priority to get in early, contact the head football strength and conditioning coordinator, and get a workout in their gym. And when you think of these big schools, the Georgias and the Ole Misses and the Alabamas and Clemsons, their football facilities are incredible. And as you get to know, people throughout the college football programs over the years, because I've been doing this for a while now, you feel comfortable pinging them and asking for a workout. And they love that too, because then they can kind of tell you their story and their philosophy. And I was working with a retired NFL, I'll say, tight end, Anthony Becht, who's a great guy. We're good friends still to this day. And he was at that time doing a lot of like sprint jogs on the treadmill and kind of just spiking his heart rate and doing some different things. And as a result, I kind of started doing that. But then I started really asking a lot of questions to these strength and conditioning coordinators. And the common theme with all of their feedback was to shock the system and to really do things different. And, it's not about the hour and 10-minute trip to the gym. It's about 40 minutes of really getting after it and working out at a different pace and changing your workouts. And, once you get into that kind of rhythm, and better than anyone, you can get creative with your workouts. Whether I'm in a hotel gym or I'm at one of these football facilities, and if I don't have the access to the head strength and conditioning coordinator to put me through a workout, especially in a year like this with COVID, because that's not happening, I become really creative with my workouts. And I think the common denominator in the last 5 or 6 years is I always shock the system. And sometimes shocking the system could be a 5-6 mile run when I haven't done that in 3 weeks. So it changes regularly for me. I've really upped the ante in terms of just the way that I work out on treadmills. I have a Peloton at home. I'm competitive with myself. I always try to gas it out and get in the top, 2% of the class when there's, 25, 50,000 people. I'm looking at the numbers and I'm competitive with myself because I know what I'm capable of doing. And I push myself. And that's kind of where I get my competition now. As an athlete, I'm not going to go out on a lacrosse field and have a day anymore. Those days are numbered. So I'm going to push myself in different ways. I try to become a better snowboarder every year, technically speaking. I try to have better endurance and cardio, and I try to stay flexible. And that's probably an area I need to do a lot better of a job, is my flexibility. But, a long answer for you, but I would say 5 years ago, my mindset completely changed. I was going on the road and I was working and I wasn't eating as well. And I was tired a lot too. I feel like these workouts and the way that I do it has given me energy. I sleep better, especially on days where I'm not consuming alcohol. I'm not going to lie to you. I like to have some drinks. I'm a tequila fan. But when I indulge a little bit more than I should, my workouts aren't as good. But you know what? My body needs that too sometimes to just, recalibrate.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of that stuff resonates with not only myself, but the clients that I personally work with, because I think in a lot of ways, being in the position that you're in now affords you the ability to enjoy yourself and to enjoy your life. And why work so hard if you're not going to be able to enjoy yourself? Now, one of the points that you brought up was, hey, I started kind of changing my mindset when it came to my workouts, and all of a sudden there was a shift there. Can you pinpoint whether it was you mentioned you spoke to some people? Can you pinpoint the time when you went from mailing into your, phoning in your workouts to, you know what, I'm going to start taking this seriously. And do you know what that catalyst for that was? Because I know that there's so many people who are kind of like in the same spot you were, in that late 30s range. Was there a sense of urgency to it? What do you think that really was?
You know, if I was to look back at the Final Four that I covered in college lacrosse in 2015 compared to the Final Four in 2016, I would say between those 2 years was the shift, 5-6 years ago. And I think, as you get older, you get wiser. And I was starting to think to myself, why are you putting in all of these hours? Like, why are you getting in a car, driving to a gym where it's like a 2-hour swing out of your day, and you're not doing it the right way? So for me, it's like, why am I doing this? I'm either going to really do this right, or I should just stop doing this and just let it go. And the way that I'm wired, that really wasn't an option. But I think as I got to 40, and 40 is a number, and I know people are like, oh, it's just a year. And that kind of sparked some things in my mind in terms of like how I want these next, 20 years to be, because I feel like between 40 and 60 and even beyond that, if you keep yourself in top shape and you eat well for the most part, and I'm not a freak about it. Like I said, I like pizza. I limit my carbs throughout the course of the week, but if I know that I'm in a really good town for pizza, I'm crushing pizza. I love meatballs. I have a sweet tooth with ice cream. So I'll just, monitor it a little bit more than I had in the past. But I feel like between like 40 and 60, 65, like if you keep yourself in the right state of mind and physically really train and stay healthy, you should have no limitations. Like I should be able to snowboard, relatively speaking, the same way at 55 as I can at 45. So to me, it was kind of just, okay, how do I want to plan out the next, 20, 25 years of my life? Because these are great years. These are years where, when you're 55 and you maybe start moving in a different direction work-wise, like you've got 10, 20 great physical years ahead of you. So like I wanted to almost build a foundation for that. And I know it sounds nuts, but I think once I knew like 40 was coming, my mindset changed. And I was just saying to myself, like, dude, you're wasting way too much time here if you're not going to do this the right way. Like, why am I going to go to a gym, do the tricep machine, take a, 2-minute break, sip some water, go over bench a little bit, do those kinds of things where now I'm going to be honest with you, my workouts are way shorter and way more productive and way harder. And I'm trained for it now too. Like I was actually telling my wife the other day, I had a game at Michigan. I did Michigan, Penn State in football. And, I can't go to the facilities this year because of COVID. So I was in the workout room in the hotel, very limited workout room, but they had some dumbbells and they had a sturdy treadmill. I crushed it for like 45 minutes. I would do 7.5 minutes on the treadmill. And I would, spike my heart rate up where I started off jogging, and I would do incline sprint hills back to a jog. Then I'd go on the floor for 7.5 minutes. And, I did that for basically like 45 minutes. And I was telling my wife, I'm like, I think I'm at a point now where, if I was to take my shirt off, I don't look like I did when I was in my 20s, but I feel like wind wise, I'm in as good a shape as I've been in the last, like, honestly, 15, 20 years.
That's impressive. And that's important for a lot of people to hear, in the sense that, 40 is that golden number of like, oh, this is where people start to drop off. But, hearing people like you, like even looking at some of like the biggest Hollywood actors and actresses, actors like, Ryan Reynolds is like, right around your age as well, but he ain't got no problem taking his shirt off. And you got all these, that 40 almost seems like it's a beautiful like tipping point where it comes to, I have enough financial security and my work has done work for me that I've earned the time back. Whereas like in your 30s, that's when you're just grinding and you just you have your kids, you got to put in the sweat equity with work. And now the 40 is almost like that nice little cusp where it's like, okay, I've earned some time back. Do you feel that way?
I think that's a great point. And yes, the 30s were a blur for me. I have 2 kids. I have a 13-year-old boy and a 10-year-old daughter. And I just remember being in the weeds so much and really trying to establish myself professionally as well, that like I didn't have the time or the mental space in my brain to prioritize things. Now it's like the gears have kind of shifted, and it's become a priority for me. And because I have more stability, from the standpoint where, I'm a thinker, and I always try to evolve myself, and I never really want to, peg myself as being so dependent on one thing in my life, whether it's, work or a certain type of emotional investment. I just try to keep them all balanced. And I feel like in my 30s, it wasn't as balanced. It was more focused towards like work and just getting through the weeds with my family. And now I feel like I could kind of meander my way through a day and a week where I'm doing it the right way from like a balance perspective. Because when you do it the right way, you start to enjoy each little bucket more, as opposed to just trying to get it done and feeling overwhelmed. Because look, we're all overwhelmed. Anyone who tells you like they have it all figured out is full of BS, right? Like I have days where I'm going sideways in my mind, and I'll never forget, like 2 weeks ago, I was coming back from Florida, Vanderbilt. My flight was delayed like 6 hours. I got home at like 3 a.m. I was toast for like 2 days after that. And just everything started unraveling. And I had a bad attitude in the house, and my family was mad at me. And, I was totally overwhelmed because I didn't sleep, and that threw me off for a couple days. And we all have days, man. Life is not easy. Even when you think you're in control and you're in a better spot, you will find a way to fill up the stress bucket too. Like my stresses are different now. My 13-year-old son, Grayson, he's autistic, and he's very, very challenging. And there are days where honestly, like I sit there and think and we all go through this, and I'm not embarrassed to say it too. Why me? Like, why do I have to deal with this right now? This is like, why can't it just be easy? And it's not easy. It's really difficult. And then there are days where those difficult moments in the journey that I've been through with him has prepared me to be good at other things too. Like I don't stress about things that maybe some people might at work. Like, if things are going in a different direction during a broadcast and we have to come on early or have to leave late or do whatever, like the tap dancing aspect of work just doesn't stress me out. Like when a red light on a camera comes on and we're live and, it's not a rehearsal, I don't really stress too much about stuff like that. And I owe a lot of that to him because I think he fills up my stress bucket.
So obviously you've identified some of your biggest stressors in your life, Paul, and I love the analogy of the stress bucket. But I imagine that there's some things that you do to empty that bucket. What are those things that do empty your bucket in that way?
I think snowboarding for me is that from a personal perspective and a family perspective, because my whole family, my wife Ann and my son Grayson, he's been snowboarding since he's 3. He's a great little snowboarder. And my daughter Payla's 10. She's a really, really legit snowboarder too. So we all snowboard and we go out west, and occasionally we'll take a weekend trip to Vermont, but we try to plan a couple big west trips every year. And that's my way of really relieving my stress bucket, because when I'm out in Utah and I'm on the top of the mountain and I'm overlooking the valleys and I'm with my family, it's one of the few places that Grayson can go for a day. And really kind of just do what he's doing. Because, for those that are listening that have family members who have autism, you know what I'm talking about, where like the child or the adult with autism rarely can just embrace the moment, right? They're always looking for what's next, or there could be something that he's fixated on or that's distracting him. Like he could wake up in the middle of the night and come into my room like, when are you going to make key lime pie again? Like, even if I haven't made key lime pie or Ann hasn't made key lime pie in ages, like if that's on his mind, that's what he's talking to you about. So snowboarding for him is one of the few things that I feel like he can be in that moment. And that allows the rest of the family to enjoy it more too, because, when we're just home on a regular Sunday, there will be moments he will scale the walls and go off and do some stuff that probably he shouldn't do. And that can be stressful. But I think when we're away out in the mountains, he's in his happy place. So, that provides a level of happiness for all of us.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I could see that it might give you like tons of permission to just be like, you know what? Everybody's like the stress levels just drop tremendously.
Yeah. And another way I relieve my stress bucket, honestly, are daily workouts. Like when I work out, I don't have my phone with me. I just don't. Like, I just don't see the point in me checking messages unless it's like something urgent, right? Like I'll have my phone with me. And if I know my wife's doing something and she needs me, and like if she calls, I need to do X. I get that. But like I am not like going on Instagram or checking Twitter or responding to emails during a workout. Like a workout for me is like I try to make it pretty intense. I try to get after it. And I also don't want my mind occupied with anything other than maybe an instructor that's telling me something or music that I'm hearing. I want to escape. I want a canvas of nothingness.
Yeah. And I know people a lot of times, especially when I'm working with them, they go, it's my time to escape my regular life. But it's interesting because I try to turn it back on them. And I'm like, no, you're actually in real life. Like all the other shit is fugazi that you're dealing with, especially if you're ruminating over the stressful situations they have to do in the future or the things that you just went to. It's almost like that 40 to 45 minutes where you are hitting it hard, you're the most like alive and present than any other time, right? Do you feel more present during your workouts and especially like right afterward? It's able to kind of, like you said, it's a stress relief, but do you feel a little more centered after these intense workouts that you're doing?
Yeah, I feel centered after them, but I also feel centered during them. And it's a different feeling. It's I think physically when you can exhaust yourself, and look, man, I'm not in the kind of shape you're in.
Stop it.
For a 45-year-old guy, I think I'm doing pretty well, but I know my level of like compete, right? And that allows me to be centered. If I know that I'm competing from 0 to 60 and I'm gassing it out during these workouts, to me, I feel centered because I feel fulfilled and I feel challenged. And I want that in my life. And then I feel centered afterwards, but it's a different kind of feeling. It's more of like, okay, I accomplished that. And I'm going to be honest with you, man, like it gives me energy for the rest of the day. I feel like, if your body's a car, like you sparked up and you stay like warm and heated after, as opposed to just being dormant. And the rest of my day is better. Like I am a better, more productive person on days that I work out. My workouts are always early too. I don't like working out unless I have to in the afternoon. It just doesn't do it for me, man. It changes my mindset of like early in the morning wanting to work out to, if I don't get it done afternoon, man, I don't want to do it.
Yeah, you're almost dreading it, like trying to, when am I going to fit this in? Whereas if it's in the morning first thing, bang, you're a firecracker from there.
Yeah.
Awesome. So another aspect of life on the road, so to speak, is, and you brought this up a couple times, because you do enjoy, like you're going some of the, like, especially college towns, these are notorious for having unbelievable food, fare, enjoyment. And I know obviously there's extenuating circumstances that have changed the scenario this year, but how do you balance that? Like you want to enjoy yourself. You want to go to, like you said, some of the best cities and enjoy their, pizza and burgers and whatever it might be. What is your, compass to make sure that you're staying on track, or is there something that you use to stay on track?
Okay. So for me, I would say, 10 years ago when I was on the road, I would pack my bags and I would eat whatever was there and I'd find places to eat. Now I'm way more methodical in the way that I do it. I pack stuff for breakfast. Like I pack like oatmeal. I'll pack some nuts and different kinds of snacks. I'll make sure I have some bananas in my hotel room. And I would say that I have a baseline of stuff that I can eat, especially through snacking too, because, we're in a lot of meetings, and this year we're on a ton of Zoom calls. So in between then and, the next Zoom call, I don't really want to have to worry too much about what I'm eating, how I'm getting there. And I feel like I have a baseline of stuff that I'll bring, RX bars, some nuts, some bananas, some fruit. I've got my oatmeal, and I'll find some maybe, supermarkets in the towns I'm traveling to. Like if I know I'm in the city, I'll Google a Whole Foods. I'll make sure that I have some fruit and, maybe some little protein shakes where I can pop. And I'll have that as my baseline. And if I know there's something in that town that's really legit, like if I'm in Memphis and there's Gus's fried chicken,
yep,
I'm eating Gus's fried chicken. I really enjoy Gus's fried chicken, but that would be like the one meal of the day that I went off the rails a little bit. And maybe the other, for breakfast, I'm always packing my own stuff. Lunch, if I know I'm having Gus's, maybe I'll just eat a light salad or something and go out and crush some Gus's. Or if I'm in, flying into Des Moines, Iowa, heading up to Ames and calling an Iowa State game. And, they had this unbelievable barbecue place called Cornbread, and it was fantastic. One of the best I've ever had. Like, I knew I was going to sit down and, barbecue fills you up. So you plan around that. And if you do that a couple times a week and you have that meal, like, you need that, man. You need to live and you need to enjoy things. So, Monday through Thursday before I jump on the plane, I'm going to eat pretty clean. I always have a little sweet at night. That's my cheat. But, my meals for the most part are pretty clean. And when I'm on the road, if I know there's something good, I'm eating it. I'm just going to kind of compromise a little bit, as opposed to 10 years ago where, maybe in the morning I'm going to a diner and having, an egg omelet with home fries and toast and, slugging a coffee at lunch. We stop and grab a slice of pizza and then I eat Gus's. Like, that's a train wreck.
Yeah. So basically you can't do perfect, but you're going to do good.
Yeah. Yeah. And for the rest of the week, when I'm home for those 4 days, I'm going to try to stay clean.
Yeah.
But, if I know Sunday is, it's not a great day out and I want to cook Italian, I'm going to cook Italian. Yep. But I think the biggest thing for me on the road that changed is I bring my own food now.
Yeah. That's a great tip.
Really important.
So you're not having to rely on, being in the middle of nowhere, figuring something out and then ending up with some kind of horrible compromise, like going to McDonald's or something like that.
Yeah.
You got your oatmeal, you got your RX bars, you got your nuts. At least you have something there.
Yes.
And then you can figure the rest out from there.
Yes, 100%. I'm always packing my own breakfast. I mean, there's great oatmeal now, like, these protein oatmeal, little kind of pre-packed ones that are just sick. You put some hot water in it. And
RX actually makes one too. The RX oats. Those are great.
Yeah,
I have my whole closet is filled with them.
I'll have a couple bananas with me with little, peanut butter and, that could be lunch sometimes. And it works for sure.
Absolutely. So, a question kind of on top of the topic we just talked about, if there was one city that was the pinnacle of a cheat meal, and because you've been all across this country, up and down, where would that be?
Wow.
And I know this is very controversial because, you never know where you're going to go next, and all of a sudden they're going to give you crap for it. But so far, I mean, you've been everywhere. Where is the one where you circle on the calendar and go, I can't wait for that?
Wow. That's a great question. Every city has something, and every college town is known for something. I mentioned like Gus's fried chicken in Memphis. It's just different and great. Like they do that at a really, really high level. Like you go out to the Midwest and, you're in Nebraska, Misty Steakhouse, and, you get the potato that has the butter in it already, salt on top of it. Like you do it because you're there. And
what about Austin, Paul?
Austin, they have unbelievable barbecue, but I'm going to be honest with you. Some of the best barbecue that I've had some barbecue here in Ridgefield, Connecticut at Hoodoo Brown, and these guys have kind of canvassed the entire country where they took pieces from different pit bosses and incorporated in theirs. Like, so right up the road from me is unbelievable. The place I was in Iowa is as good as any barbecue I've ever had. But I would say the one complete train wreck cheap food is in Rochester, New York. There's a dish called the garbage plate. I don't know if you're aware of it.
I believe I've heard of something like that.
But the garbage plate is 2 cheeseburgers with home fries, mac and cheese, bacon smothered with cheese on top of it. I mean, it's just the complete grease train wreck type meal that tastes really good, especially if it's late at night and you've been out with a couple of your buddies and you do it. But there's some phenomenal places I've been to, and honestly, like each city. I was in Ann Arbor last week, and there's Zingerman's Deli. That's great. If you're in Ann Arbor, you want to get a piece of that. Like honestly, every city has that one spot that I think.
Let's be honest, and I know you were going to be candid. I think it was a couple years back. You were at BYU, and I believe you had a cat's tail.
Yes, the cat's tail was actually.
Was it BYU?
Yeah, that was, but it wasn't. They call it the cat's tail.
Okay, so it sounded horrific. You took a bite of it, and I think you threw up over your shoulder afterward. How was that thing?
that was great. So that was like a donut with like sausage. It was
like a donut with
a donut.
Yeah.
Yes. And I washed it down
like their version of a corn dog.
Yes, and I washed it down with some milk. But that was fantastic. I think for me, when I travel, I always try to find like the best food in that town and what that town's known for. The one thing that I just won't touch, to be quite honest with you, is Italian food, just because I feel like where you're from and where I'm from, the tri-state area of New York, there's some of the best Italian, outside of Italy in the world. Mm-hmm. So I'm not in a rush to try, Italian food in Wisconsin. You know what I mean? Like, in all due respect.
Oh, you got to go to this Madison pasta house, man. You're like,
yeah. Like
you got to try the linguine.
Yeah. Well, but if, and the other thing is a lot of these college towns outside of maybe like Boston, like Boston's got some really good Italian. A lot of these college towns aren't really big Italian spots food-wise to begin with. So like, I'm not seeking out Italian. I get my Italian, where it's at its best.
Is there anywhere in the States that compares to New York pizza? Because every freaking city's probably, you got to go to this pizza place. Does anywhere hold a candle? I mean, like, obviously you got like Pepe's, you got some New Haven style pizzas and stuff like that. So like you said, that tri-state area, obviously we got it on lock. Anywhere in the States that you go, wow, this is actually pretty damn good and competes.
Yeah. From a different perspective. So, New York pizza's one, and then New Haven pizza is amazing. And New Haven pizza can hang with any pizza in the world. Frank Pepe's, you have Modern, you have Sally's.
Yep.
I mean, these are some of the best pizza institutions in the world. And it's the, it's the brick oven type pizza that just, it's to die for.
Yeah.
It's different than if you were to go into New York and get like a traditional New York slice. So I love both of those. Like I put those two kind of, different types of pizza against any pizza in the world. But I will have to give my buddy and my roommate credit. He's from Buffalo, and he's always bragging about the pizza. And, I never had the Buffalo pizza until he sent it to me about 3 weeks ago. He sent it overnight because there's a place up there that actually delivers because it's their like best pizza.
Yep. And
it's almost like a hybrid of Chicago pizza, which I'm not the biggest fan of, and New York pizza. So it's like it's got like the pan, greasy, golden bottom. It's a little thicker than New York, probably twice as thick.
Yep. Almost
like a layer of cheese underneath the sauce and then the cheese on top again. It was Look, man, I had every inclination to tell him, like, stop, like, don't
save it.
I had it. My family tried it too. Like,
Wow.
it was legit. Buffalo pizza completely exceeded my expectations. And while I'm on the Buffalo topic, here's the other thing. When you travel to these places, a lot of people are like, oh, they have the best this ever. They have the best this ever. A lot of times you're like, wow, this was really good. But, like, I've had a steak as good as this before, or I've had X or Y as good as this before. I will say every time I'm in Buffalo, the wings there are the best. They are. They're the best.
A little different.
And that goes to my whole theory with, like, Texas barbecue. I've had Texas barbecue a bunch. I thought the barbecue in Iowa was better. The barbecue in my town is as good. Like, I'm not dying for Texas barbecue. Buffalo and their wings, like, it's the New York version of pizza. It really is better.
Unbelievable. Paul, we've gone across the gambit here. We've talked about workouts. We've talked about food indulgences. Before we go, I just want to point out something. I believe it was back in 2007. Okay. We were sitting in Duffy's Sports Bar down here in Palm Beach County.
I can imagine who's next to us too.
I know who you definitely know, and you definitely know that they didn't pick up the tab. Anyway.
Of course not. Now we're talking about the same guy.
I just want to, fluff up your feathers a little bit here. 30-something Paul Carcaterra says, this guy, Nick Saban, is going to be coming in to Bama, and he's going to win multiple national championships within the next 5 years.
Yeah.
And sure as shit, this guy, Nick Saban, came in and basically remapped the landscape of college football, Paul. Now, that leads us into kind of like my final little thing here. What type of legacy do you think your work has done? And this is something I've always wanted to ask you, for not only the lacrosse community, but now obviously the college football community. What kind of legacy do you think you have left thus far, and where do you want to go from here?
That's a great question, because honestly, I've never thought of myself as someone who even is going to have a legacy. I don't know why. Like, until you've asked me that, I've never sat down and said to myself, how will people remember me? I don't know if that's good or bad. Now that you ask me that and I think of it, it makes me feel like I'm getting a little older, right? Which is fine. B, it's kind of forcing me to reflect a little bit, which is fine too. I think my legacy in the sport of lacrosse could potentially be significant from the perspective that I've always gotten behind players and the storytelling aspect of the sport as much, if not more, than the actual game itself. I've always considered myself as part of this fraternity in the sport of lacrosse I'm very proud of. And it's allowed me to really have access to anything and anywhere. Because I think people trust me too. And that's really important. No one's going to get burned when they tell me something, or if they confide in me over a certain topic. So the sport of lacrosse, I think at some point in time, I would hope that my legacy would be one that was authentic. It was from a perspective that people looked at me as one of their own, that they could trust, and promoted the sport in an authentic, organic way. I think I've done things just from a media standpoint, and the way that we broadcasted things, and things that I've gotten behind in terms of some of these features that I've done in the past to get to know athletes. I can confidently say that I've made a change in the way that the sport, within, at the very least, within its own little entity, and how the stars are perceived, because I've kind of opened up the curtain a little bit more and done things with intention to storytell and to learn about people, whether it's through my podcasts, and really mapping out the journey of a lacrosse player's life, or if it's, some of the features I've done in the past where I've done the drive arounds with players and coaches and personalities, or the haircut segments that I've, incorporated a skill that I, have been doing since I'm in 5th grade, and incorporated that also into storytelling and an interview within the subject. I feel like I've humanized the lacrosse athlete much more than it's ever been humanized. And I'm proud of that. Football is such a big sport that I feel like storytelling is always on the top of my agenda as well. But the barrier of entry there is a little bit different. And the guard's a little bit heightened because there's a lot more money involved in football, whether it's college football or professional football. And with that, there's more people involved. And when there's more people involved, there's, for lack of a better term, more red tape.
Yep.
Where lacrosse, honestly, in a non-COVID year, if I wanted to do a feature on Sean LaFlock, I literally text his coach or his SID, who I know really well already. And I'm like, hey, I'm going to do this. And they're like, sounds great. And that to me is awesome because, lacrosse isn't football or basketball or hockey. It allows me to be creative and take chances and to be excited about it too. One thing with me is what you see is what you get. If I'm excited, I'm excited. If I'm down, I'm down. And I'll tell people that. I try to be as true and real as I can, and the sport of lacrosse has allowed me to do that. I will say, look, man, people who don't know me, I'm sure there's people who watch me on television or listen to me and they're like, oh my God, what a clown, or this, that, and the other thing. I think most people who get to know me know that I'm real and I'm a good person, and I'm pushing the sport as much as I possibly can. And I think, and I firmly believe, anyone who peels off that first layer and gets to know me will trust me and knows that I'm an ambassador for the game of lacrosse, that'll always push the game first before me.
That's awesome, Paul. Always inspiring. And I always feel much more, my cup is always more full when we have conversations, we get to communicate. So hopefully, if nothing else happens between now and the end of this nonsense, hopefully we'll be able to keep in touch even more. And, I wish you all the best in the rest of the season, and hopefully lacrosse picks up and, we have an unbelievable 2021. Paul, you said you had a podcast. What's it called and where can we find it?
It's Overtime. It's Overtime with Paul Carcaterra. It's on iTunes, and it's through US Lacrosse, which is the governing body of the sport. And it's done quite well, man. And a lot of it's storytelling. It's not a lot of X's and O's. We're not breaking down the game and highlights from the week before. It's more taking the subject, whether it's a male or female, and really getting in deep and telling his or her story and challenges and great accomplishments. And, I always like to be able to highlight someone's accomplishments, but I also like to highlight someone's struggles, because those accomplishments don't happen without struggles. You know that better than anyone. And part of your story that I think is so significant for me, and I always tell people, it's, I'll never forget the day where, I'm coaching high school lacrosse in Westchester County, and you knock on the door telling me you're going to be my lacrosse goalie that season without ever playing lacrosse before. And within just a couple of days, I knew you were the guy. And I wasn't shocked at anything you accomplished in the sport after that, changing another position and playing Division I lacrosse, the highest level. And all those memories that we had, obviously as a team together when you were in high school, but more importantly, as you got older, when we started playing club lacrosse together and sharing some times together and sharing, common friends, and that bond was just tremendous. And that's what sports is all about more than anything. It's understanding people and teammates and getting behind individuals and being inspired by people. So as much as I might have inspired you, you've inspired me. And I think that's the beauty of sports, man.
Unbelievable. And I think that's a great point to end this today. Paul, I really, really appreciate your time. I know you're a super busy guy between, traveling and probably 6 million Zoom meetings. And I imagine this is probably the 12th you've had today. And then obviously your family too. But man, I really appreciate your time. And I hope to speak to you soon.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Paul.